We often think of joy as something that happens when things are going great. But what if it's possible to find joy not just in spite of suffering, but actually because of a purpose you find right in the middle of it? It's a huge question, and today we're going to explore it through two incredible stories of faith in the face of some pretty extreme hardship. So let's start with this. These are the words of a modern Adventist pastor. He was falsely imprisoned, and he spent nearly 2 years behind bars. And yet, that's his reflection. Not bitterness, not despair, but joy. So the big question is, how on earth did he get there? Well, at first, as you can imagine, he was just completely lost, bewildered by the whole thing. But then something clicked. He started to see his imprisonment not as a punishment or some terrible mistake, but as a divine assignment. The prison, that was his new mission field.
And look, this wasn't just some abstract idea in his head. No way. It led to real, incredible action. He completely transformed that place. I mean, he was preaching sermons, handing out religious books, even baptizing prisoners who converted and holding communion services. He literally built a church right there in his cell block.
This story is so powerful on its own, but what's amazing is that it has this famous historical parallel that really helps us get what's going on here. And that parallel is the Apostle Paul, a guy who knew a thing or two about chains and hardship. The thing about Paul is, his faith wasn't a fluke. It wasn't something he just mustered up once. It was his go-to response whenever he faced suffering. Just look at this timeline. In Philippi, he gets unjustly accused, beaten up, and then thrown in jail with his feet shackled. And what does he do? At midnight, he's singing hymns. Seriously. Then later, from a different prison, he's writing some of the most important foundational letters of the entire Christian faith. You see, his circumstances never, ever silenced his mission. And this verse it really hammers home how wild his reaction was. Think about it. It's midnight. You're in a dark, dirty prison cell. You've just been beaten, and your first instinct is to worship? I mean, wow. And don't miss that last part. The prisoners were listening to them. His response, his worship, it became a sermon all by itself. So, yeah, this brings us right back to the core question, right? How? How is this even possible? What on earth allows someone to choose joy when everything around them is screaming despair? Well, the answer really comes down to understanding that there are two totally different ways to experience life. On one side, you've got what we call happiness, and it's situational, right? It depends on things going our way, it's fleeting, it's unreliable. But on the other side, you have spiritual joy, and that's a whole different ballgame. It's anchored inside of you in a purpose that doesn't change with the weather. That's what makes it so resilient, so enduring, no matter what's happening on the outside. And get this, Paul himself, while he's writing this very letter to the Philippians from prison, gives this incredible command. He doesn't say, hey, rejoice when things are good. No, he says, rejoice in the Lord always. See, he's pointing directly to the source of that unbreakable spiritual joy. It's not found in the situation. It's found in God. Okay, so here's the absolute key to all of this. Both the pastor and Paul were driven by this deep conviction of a greater purpose. They truly came to believe that their trials, their suffering, it wasn't just random, meaningless stuff happening to them. Instead, they saw it as a unique opportunity, a new stage for their mission. The hardship wasn't the roadblock, it was the road. Okay, so this is all great for them, but what about us? What does this mean for you and me? Because let's be real, trials, big and small, they're a part of life we just can't avoid. So how can we learn from these amazing examples? Well, it really boils down to a pretty practical 3-step approach we can all try. First, you have to acknowledge the hardship. This isn't about playing tough or pretending it doesn't hurt. The pain is real. Acknowledge it. Step 2, you have to actively look for a greater purpose. Start asking the question, okay, this is terrible, but how could this be used for something good, for something beyond me? And then step 3, based on that purpose you find, you make a conscious choice to rejoice. And you're not rejoicing in the pain, not at all. You're rejoicing in the potential for good that you've just discovered inside of it. And that really leaves us with this final question to chew on. We've seen how Paul and a modern-day pastor literally transformed their prisons into pulpits, all by finding a greater purpose. So the challenge for us, for you, is to look at our own unavoidable trials and ask ourselves that same question. What is the purpose that could be waiting for me? Right here, right now.